approve the minutes from our last meeting on June 5th.
I would make the motion to approve the minutes with one modification. There's an extra P in JP's last name.
Okay, with the modification and removing an extra P in JP's last name.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we approve the minutes.
Hi everyone. My name is Alex DeSena. Yeah, let's move that up a little. It's great to see you all again. Today, Livia and I will be presenting together, and we'll be covering a number of topics. We will be going over the housing survey results summary, housing tools and best practices, including affordable housing fact sheet, missing middle fact sheet, and a zoning 101 fact sheet. We have a list of existing programs and resources for you. And then we'll go over the WIDA financing programs that we've been discussing.
I just want to assure that I took the best practices residential zoning code guide out for two reasons. We don't have enough time, and it actually hasn't been published yet. And until it's finally approved by the committee that oversaw it, I don't feel comfortable sharing it with you. But I'm happy to share it at the next meeting. Highlights from the next meeting. Yeah.
And we did reorder the agenda a bit. Did you want to speak to that?
Everything's still here, just a little bit of a difference, yeah.
Right.
And then we also, Erin is going to speak to impact fees and affordability at the last item on the agenda. But we'll also review the go ahead, regional.
Yeah, the regional and local trends and highlights recap from meeting number 1. So we know we gave you a lot of data, so just a quick overview of that. And then we will also review the priority strategy and values exercise from the last meeting and the next steps. And then Erin will finish us off with a discussion on impact fees and affordability.
Before we do start, I would like to introduce our colleague, Paige Marshall, who's actually a Village of Cottage Grove resident. She's a graduate student in urban and regional planning, and she is a project assistant for the year in the Dane County Planning Division. And she's been helping out tremendously and has done a lot of data collection for some of the data that you've seen, and did the pivot tables for the summary of the housing survey. So we really appreciate your time and support, and the fact that you're a Cottage Grove resident. We've gotten some insights into Cottage Grove from your work. So that's Paige Marshall.
Great. Okay, I'll just dive into a quick overview of the survey outreach that was conducted. So we did do electronic email outreach to 18 groups or organizations in the village. We provided hard copies of the survey to 7 groups or organizations. It was offered to 13. We didn't hear back from the others. The survey link was posted on 2 websites, the Village of Cottage Grove website and the Monona Grove School District website. There was also a number of social media posts made about the survey. And then with all of your help, thank you very much, we were able to distribute a bunch of the postcards with the QR link to the survey. So we did get over 700 responses total. We did remove the ones that did not indicate that they were village residents, and so only analyzed the results for village residents only, just to streamline the findings and make sure it reflected the resident sentiments. The total then, with those removed, was 664. So you'll be hearing from that many residents in these responses. There were a number of limitations, so we did get a low response rate from young adults between the ages of 18 and 30. We also got a low response rate from renter households, and had some overrepresentation of homeowners. So just to paint that picture, Cottage Grove homeowners make up 74% of residents, and renters make up almost 26%. However, for the survey, 88% of respondents were homeowners, and only 9.8% were renters. We also did have a low response rate from Spanish-speaking households as well.
Quick question.
Sure.
Overall, in the response rates, did you calculate the percentage versus home or residents that would be renters and/or homeowners within the village? If so, what was that overall response rate?
That's what's reported.
Yeah, that's what this is. So I also have a graph on that. This is that breakdown further. Is that what you're asking about?
No, I guess the question is how many people, or what would be the number of people or actually households that would be considered homeowners or renters? What's that? And then, or that would be the denominator, and then what we're looking for, or what we're going off of, is the total responses, about 700, so to get the total response rate within village-wide, not of these breakdowns between homeowners versus renters.
Oh, do we compare them, compare that to the question is, do we compare it to the overall population of Cottage Grove?
That's
No.
a better way to phrase it.
Mhm.
Okay.
No, yeah. Thank you for the question.
Happy to bring that data forward next time.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
Just had a question about the non-residents. Is it possible any of those were business owners or employers? Did we cross-check that?
A number of them, but they were located in Madison, and most of them were from town of Cottage Grove. We did not double check that, but that's something we can check if we eliminated any business owners or employers.
I'll just share with you that we got a lot of responses, and there's a lot of analysis we can do. This is really just summary. We didn't do any crosstabs. If you want further analysis, we're happy to do that. The survey did close a week and a half ago, so it's fairly, we did this really quickly because we understand you're in a timeline, Erin has a timeline, but we're happy to continue to bring forward more data if you want. But this is really just bringing the, straight summary responses. But yeah, and we can, if there's a list of additional data analysis you would like, just, we can identify that at the, later in the meeting. Okay.
But please continue to feel free to ask questions as we move along, or share any thoughts if you find something shocking or interesting, or you just have thoughts that you'd like to share. We're really interested to hear. Okay, any other questions or, okay. So housing tenure, I just briefly mentioned this, but 88% or 586 respondents total were homeowners versus 9.8% or 65 total renters. And then we did have 12 people as well who reported they live in someone else's house without paying rent. .610 respondents, or 92%, live in single-family homes, compared to only 6.8%, or 84 respondents who live in multifamily homes. For year home built, over 88% of respondents live in homes built in 1990 or later. This reflects the village's relatively newer housing stock. Only about 11% of respondents live in homes built in 1989 or earlier. And then nearly 13% of respondents live in homes built in 2020 or later. Number of people in household. So 436 respondents, or 66.8%, reported being in family households with 4 or more people. 217 respondents, or 33%, live in households with 1 to 3 people, and then there were few single-person households with only 23 respondents selecting that option. For length of housing tenure, 403, or 60% of respondents have lived in their homes for 10 years or less. There are still established long-term residents present, with 13%, or 86 people, having lived here for 20 years or more. This mix of newcomers and longtime residents reflects some of the diverse perspectives on housing development and growth that you will be hearing. So for location of employment, 464 people, or 71.6%, reported that they live in Cottage Grove but work outside of Cottage Grove, so a clear majority. Only about 20% work and live in Cottage Grove. We had 39 people, or 6%, report that they're retired. And then 16, or 2.5%, selected other. For the other category, we had 4 people who reported being stay-at-home parents, 6 people who work from home, 2 who do not work, and then some with unclear details. Specialized housing types. So this question is for people that live in specialized housing, such as subsidized housing, income-restricted housing, and senior housing. 14 total people reported living in any of these options. 7 respondents specifically reported living in income-restricted affordable housing, which was the most selected response. And next were 5 respondents who reported living in senior housing. Is my pace okay? Am I going too fast? Okay. Okay, for top personal housing concerns, 42% of respondents reported satisfaction with their housing. However, many respondents had at least one concern. We don't have time right now to review all of them, but I do encourage you to look back at this. It's pretty interesting. However, housing affordability did come up as the dominant issue identified. After I'm satisfied with my current housing, you can see 207 people, or 33%, reported that they pay too much of their income toward housing costs. Almost 17% reported not being able to afford to retire in Cottage Grove. And then 14% of respondents can't afford needed home repairs. So those are just the top 3 responses for that question. We did have some write-ins for the other category. We categorized them into different themes. The most common were affordability, comments in opposition to multifamily housing, concerns about high taxes, opposition to low-income housing specifically, concerns about lack of amenities, mismatch in housing options, neighborhood quality concerns, growth concerns, and one equity concern.
Sorry, quick question on that.
Sure.
When going through the other options, how are you kind of coding that? Because not seeing the actual responses, there could be a chance where they could fall into different categories or multiple categories in there. So like in those cases, did you assign a tally for each one, or?
Yeah, each of them was only counted once.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yep, that does help.
Okay. Yeah, and we do have all the comments in an Excel file, so they're accessible to read. Mm-hmm. Any other questions? Okay. So we asked about top community housing concerns. What are your concerns for the community of Cottage Grove? And high property taxes stand out as a major concern, with 419 people selecting this option, or 67.9%. Then the next top response, so we combined a few because there's lots of ways to think about affordability. So, and multiple of the options touched on affordability of housing, and so we combined those, and 409 people, or 66.3%, had affordability-related concerns.
Do you mind if I just do a pop quiz here? High taxes comes up a lot in municipalities all over Dane County. I'm just curious if anybody has any idea why taxes seem to be going up. And there's no wrong answer. Pop quiz. So one of the reasons taxes go up is because the cost of services continue to go up. And the tax base, the revenue that municipalities are receiving, doesn't go up at the rate that municipal services go up. And especially in Dane County, where we have a very low vacancy rate, so cost of services are going up, and the vacancy rate is sometimes staying the same, the housing vacancy rate, property taxes staying the same or going down. So that discrepancy often forces municipalities to raise taxes, increase the mill rate. Of course, revenues come from not only property taxes, but commercial property taxes as well as, fees as well. But generally, we're in Dane County, across the county, we're seeing the discrepancy between, price of service going up and vacancy rates staying the same or actually decreasing over time. So that's sort of a 101 on property taxes.
Thanks, Olivia. I'll just add one more of the top responses here. That's okay. 126 people, or 20%, had concerns about the inability to attract and keep new employers, impacting local business and economic development. But again, peruse through this.
Can I
Lots
ask a question? Sorry.
Sure.
Just a clarifying question. You said you lumped several of the affordability-related concerns. Could you tell us which ones?
Yes.
Please.
Yes. Some of them were write-in comments in the other category.
Okay.
Lack of housing accessible to young adults. Lack of access to affordable home ownership opportunities. And
And-
lack of housing for workers.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay. Again, just to quickly go over the other category, like I said, there were a number of comments about lack of affordability, which we included in that total. There were also concerns about the wrong type of housing being built, concerns about a lack of amenities, concerns about policing and crime, connectivity and walkability issues, some opposition to government involvement in housing, and some general future development concerns. For housing type preference, about half of respondents reported being happy in their current housing. However, there was demand for a few other types of housing. The most selected option was large lot single-family homes, with 204, or 33% of respondents indicating this preference. 27 people selected single-family home on a smaller lot, and 19 selected starter home. There was also some additional demand for alternative housing types such as condos, ADUs, townhomes, and missing middle housing types.
And I just want to share that the survey is limited itself in terms of asking for a preference without actually putting a price tag next to these options. So we have to just acknowledge that that might be a preference, but if there was a price tag associated with any of these options which we didn't include, there could be some differences in that.
Larger lot.
Responses.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. I thought
Go
you were
ahead.
done. Larger lot is a lot more than 1 acre. That's what we were.
10,000 square feet.
10,000 square.
I'd also like to get your thoughts, based on these housing type preferences, knowing that 88 point, we'll call it round up to 4% of respondents were homeowners in there. For me, it kind of makes sense why some of these answers are the way they are for this particular question. Am I oversimplifying, making that jump a little too far, or do you feel like that's a fair, accurate assessment on, or at least to take into consideration when looking at this question?
So as we stated in the beginning, this survey has limitations, and one of those limitations is the fact that a considerable, I think it's 24% of the residents are renters, and we only got 9%. So there is that limitation.
Yeah, and we wanted to point that out so you could keep that in mind when reviewing the data. So it is important context. Okay. So now we're getting to the business or employer section. 55 or 8.45% of respondents were local business owners. We then asked employers what their top housing-related concerns are. While 43 reported no concerns, 39 housing-related and workforce concerns were identified. 5 businesses reported being at risk of closing due to a lack of workforce. 8 local businesses have employees unable to secure stable transportation to and from work or long commutes. 10 local businesses are experiencing high turnover and employee retention challenges. 16 businesses find it challenging to attract and recruit a stable workforce due to housing unaffordability. And then 4 selected other. This may indicate the need for some additional engagement with local employers as well. Some of the write-in answers I just want to touch on, again, high costs and taxes and the impact of that on local business. Cottage Grove employers also identified a number of housing priorities related to sustaining their workforce and operations. 12 said there's a need for more variety of housing types, variety of rental and owner-occupied unit sizes, mixed-use buildings, condos, townhomes, senior housing, etc. That's 16.9, almost 17%. Selected 30 times was more single-family owner-occupied housing. With 7 votes, more affordable rental housing. 8 votes, more market rate rental housing. Again, 4 and other. 23 selected none of the above, but 9 businesses selected all of the above. What we don't know is how many of these are small versus large employers. However, we do know that there is a presence of local employers who would prioritize more housing in order to sustain their businesses. So for home repair needs, we asked homeowners only if your home is in pressing need for any of the following repair needs within the next 12 months. While 47% of respondents are not in pressing need of making home repairs, the majority of respondents reported at least one urgent home repair needed within the next year. Roof, window, and other general repair needs were the most cited out of all of these options.
Sorry, Alex, quick question on
Sure.
this. If I recall correctly, there was no follow-up on exactly why or when, or why these items might need to be replaced. This was just a standard, this is a question.
We have a follow-up question about, do you plan on making any of the necessary repairs that I'm getting to next? And then,
Okay.
if no, why not? To kind of get at what those barriers might be or why people are forgoing making the repairs.
No, just the reason why I was asking, because I think another limitation here to note is just the timing of the survey. Because a couple months ago, we had that huge major hailstorm that Cottage Grove got hit pretty hard. So that would, again, I am making an assumption that the roof repair, siding, some other things might kind of fall into, or that might be the reason why that has become as prominent as it is.
The timing with recent damage, thank you.
Yeah, and then obviously the survey can't tell us that.
So, for whether or not you plan on making any of the necessary repairs, only 46% or 152 of the respondents plan to make the necessary repairs, while 177 or 53.8% said no. We then followed up with why not, if no. 144 people reported not moving forward with needed repairs due to financial barriers, or 88.9%. 15 people also responded that they don't know how or are unable to find a contractor. These results could indicate a need for access to housing rehab and preservation, information, resources, and financial assistance. Oh, here is that slide for you. We then asked, do you think all residents should have access to housing? And over 2/3 of respondents, 384 people, believe that all residents should have access to housing. However, almost 14% said no, and 19% said unsure, reflecting the need for continued community dialogue and education around local housing issues. We did have some write-in answers as well. There was some conditional support for access to housing.
Sorry.
Oh, thank you. There was, again, opposition to subsidized or low-income housing. There were calls for preserving small-town character. There was some criticism of the wording of the question. And then infrastructure, service capacity, and tax concerns came up 10+ times, as well as equity and affordability concerns. This question was posed to respondents who were renters only. We asked if they were facing any of the following pressing issues, and 6 people reported not feeling safe in their home, or 3.4%. 20 people have a carpet in need of replacement, or 11.4%. 19 people have windows in need of repair that are broken, leaky, don't open, etc., or almost 11%. 6 people have an unresponsive landlord, and 7 have non-functioning appliances. 139 said none of the above. This indicates there are some public health and safety issues for some village residents. It could also be an opportunity for targeted building code enforcement for some of these issues. This was trying to get at whether there are fair housing concerns or violations. We had one person have a landlord deny a service animal or emotional support animal. 3 people had a landlord refuse to make a reasonable accommodation for a disability. 7 were told to buy a house in a different neighborhood than the one they wanted. 10 were told not to look for housing in a specific neighborhood. 3 had an application for housing denied because they had Section 8 or other rental assistance. 6 felt discriminated against when applying for a mortgage from a bank. 5 felt discriminated against by a landlord in a place they were already living. And 4 felt discriminated against by a landlord when applying for an apartment. This reflects how discriminatory practices may be exacerbating some barriers to housing access in Cottage Grove for some residents. When asked what entities do you think need to work to address housing access and affordability, the majority of respondents, or 323 people, responded that the public sector and/or local government should be responsible for addressing housing affordability. Over 50% of respondents believe the private sector, developers, and builders should play a key role. Over a fourth of respondents reported that employers and nonprofit organizations should share responsibility for addressing housing affordability. The high prevalence of the public sector and private sector can indicate there are opportunities for public and private sector to partner in housing development. When asked what housing is needed most in Cottage Grove, the top response, with 374 people selecting it, was affordable starter homes. Actually, 374 selections were affordable starter homes and first-time homebuyer options. Many also prioritized more single-family homes on smaller and larger lots. Smaller lots got 238, and larger lots was selected 76 times. Townhomes with 100 responses, selections, and condos with 67 selections were also identified as needed options. There was some demonstrated demand for additional diverse housing options, such as ADUs, low-rise multifamily, and 2 to 4 unit rentals. When asked about top personal neighborhood characteristics, respondents prefer green space and parks, with that selection 294 times, walkability with 233 votes, minimal traffic and noise with 207, and bicycle-friendly design with 196. 58 people also indicated the need for transit in the village. And again, we don't have time to go through all these right now, but a lot of good data. When asked what neighborhood characteristics are most needed in Cottage Grove, the top response, as you can see with the red box, 200 selections, was wider variety of housing types, sizes, and price points. The next highest selection was green space and parks, and then walkability. Community members are calling for more diverse, affordable housing options in walkable green neighborhoods. When asked whether you would prefer to live in any of the following housing alternatives instead of your current housing, the majority of respondents would not prefer to live in these specialized housing options. However, there was some demand indicated across categories, with the highest responses for independent living, senior housing, subsidized housing, accessible or ADA compliant homes, income restricted, and supportive housing options. When asked about barriers that are preventing you from living in your preferred housing type, a little over half, or 265 people, reported no barriers to accessing their preferred housing type. However, many did report barriers. The most common barrier was a lack of homes in Cottage Grove affordable to their household, with that selected 146 times. 92 votes reporting that their preferred housing type is difficult to find or doesn't exist in the village. And other key barriers mentioned included too expensive rent costs, can't afford a down payment, and need to improve my credit. When asked if they think that there are enough housing options in their price range in Cottage Grove, the majority, 333 respondents, said no. They do not believe there are enough housing options in their price range. When asked if they feel that Cottage Grove has enough housing attainable to residents at all income levels and for employees in the local workforce, over half of respondents, 317 people, said no, indicating widespread housing affordability concerns. Only 27%, or 156 respondents, said yes. When asked how to address housing challenges, the top priority was for more affordable single-family starter homes and first-time homebuyer units. The second priority was more single-family homes on smaller lots, with 214 selections. With 139 votes, more single-family homes on larger lots was then selected. Next, 85 selections for more affordable rental units, 69 for more townhomes, 58 for more condos, 51 for improving opportunities for aging in place, and 47 calling for more rental units in 2 to 4 unit buildings. There was also some interest in providing assistance to renters and first-time homebuyers, as well as ADUs, more independent living, and affordable senior housing. When asked how your monthly housing costs compared to what you would be comfortable paying, 68% of respondents said their housing costs are within their budget. However, 111 people, which is 1 in 5 respondents, disclosed that they struggle to afford their current housing costs. And then a small but important group of 8 respondents reported being at risk of losing their current housing due to high costs. Just want to check in. Are there any questions? A lot of information. Okay, keep going. So this question is asking how much your household spends per month on housing, with the majority of respondents spending between $1,401 and $2,900 on their housing monthly. The largest group within that majority, with 26%, spending $1,901 to $2,400 monthly. 146, or 26% of respondents spend $2,901 or more on housing. Within that, about 11% of households, 59 respondents, are spending over $3,400 toward monthly housing costs. And then few respondents reported spending below $1,400 on monthly housing costs. For the respondents' age, 407 or 71% were between the ages of 31 and 50. Participation did skew toward middle-aged adults and family households. Within that majority, the largest group of respondents were between the ages of 41 and 50. 145 respondents, or about 25%, were age 51 and older. And then only 20 respondents were between the ages of 18 and 30. Again, with younger households lacking representation in the survey.
Aaron, do you know the median age of village resident? I'm looking at the
40?
comprehensive plan and it says 33.9, but that was from 10 years ago, so.
Yeah, I'm actually covering that later, and I believe it's
okay.
in 2023 it was 40.
40, okay.
40. Mm-hmm. When asked to describe their race and ethnicity, 445 or 79% of respondents identify as white or Caucasian. 70 people or 12% preferred not to answer. There were 49 or 9.1% people of color. These survey responses do reflect the demographics of the village and predominantly white population. And then when asked about gender, we had a majority of women as survey respondents. We had 174 men and 326 women. 60 preferred not to answer the question, and a small portion of residents identified outside of the gender binary. For approximate annual household income, 307 people, or 54% of respondents, make $115,000 a year or more. 144 make $55,000 to $95,000 a year, and 28 make $55,000 or less. So I just presented a lot of data, and there's lots to chew on here. Like I said, there's a few slides that I skipped, and there's lots of other data that's really useful and interesting. So please take your time reviewing the content, and feel free to follow up with any additional thoughts or questions. We'll definitely get that raw data to you so you can dive into this a little bit deeper as well. Are there any questions at this point?
I guess one of the things I would like to see is the responses from the people outside Cottage Grove, because I'm curious to know what is preventing people outside moving into the village, so
Sure.
I'd like to see that.
Yeah, we can provide that to you. Any other thoughts, questions?
Okay, great. I'll just move this a little over here so we can get that. So I'm going to go through three sort of areas of best practice that are coming up for communities, all the communities really in Dane County. One is affordable housing, kind of what is it? The other one is missing middle, 101, kind of orient everybody to that. And then looking at zoning, because zoning is one of the biggest opportunities that municipalities have to address the housing shortage and affordability crisis. Please feel free to take out your fact sheets. They have really most detailed information, so I'm kind of, in part going to be summarizing the fact sheets as we go along. So when I talk about affordable housing, I'm actually talking about affordable/workforce housing. There are a lot of different ways to define, that people use to define affordable housing, but for this sake of this discussion, I'm specifically referring to new multifamily construction. There's also single-family housing, but that is affordable housing, but that's a different subject for a different time. And this type of housing brings forward the largest number of low to moderate cost housing, where, in particular, because there's a federal tax credit program that provides funding to help bring these developments forward. So for the sake of this conversation, new multifamily affordable/workforce housing. Instead of saying affordable/workforce housing the whole time, I'll just be calling it affordable housing. Yeah. So, and then just to qualify that a little bit more, so housing that is affordable to residents at or below 80% of the area median income. And I'm going to show you a table in just a minute, but that is typically what is called low to moderate affordable housing, low to moderate housing for folks who are at or below the area median income of 80%. Typically, most of the projects have a majority of units that are available to folks who are 60% of the area median income or less. The other thing I will share with you is that these new multifamily developments are what's called mixed income. So there is market rate, which the developers need to actually make the return on investment and pay their bills. There is, and then the rest of it is anywhere from 80 to 30% of the area median income, and residents pay 30% of whatever their income bracket is. As they move up the income bracket, their rent actually goes up. So just a little primer here on this next slide. Market rate versus workforce/affordable housing, which costs more? Anybody want to guess? Take a wild guess. It's a trap. It's a trick. Okay. They actually cost the same. Unless you're talking about luxury apartments, they actually cost the same. Same labor costs, same cost of materials, same land costs. So the big difference is that the commercial market rate.
When you say it costs the same, do you mean costs the same to build or to rent out?
Build. To build, right? Development. We're just talking about development. So the commercial market rate, the big difference is that they have anywhere from 15 to 30% equity, and they pass on the rest of that cost to the tenants. Affordable housing developers need to bring 60% or more equity to the table. So financing, what does that look like? So market rate developers have to bring a lot less, wait, what am I looking at? They have to bring a lot less equity, as I said, to the table. They also have only one or maybe two sources of equity or financing from conventional banks, whereas affordable developments, workforce developments, have anywhere from 8 to 12 different layers of financing, from WIDA tax credits to the Federal Home Loan Bank of Chicago, home or CDBG, depending on where they are, could be rural USDA rural development funds, gap financing, community support, could be in the form of land. And the development timeline for market rate developments is 1 to 2 years, but the development timeline for workforce and affordable housing is 3 to 4 years. So who needs affordable housing? Teachers, public safety, trades, construction workers, hairdressers, senior care, CNAs. I will share with you that a few years ago when we were holding a housing summit, one of the keynotes who owns a healthcare employment company and basically employs CNAs and nurses, shared that their CNAs, some of their CNAs were living in cars. So this is actually a real challenge for the senior community, especially as it grows, because CNAs are not paid that highly, and housing in Dane County is very expensive. So also retail clerks, dental hygienist, mechanic, HVAC, seniors on a fixed income. And and you can just take a look at your fact sheet, your affordable housing fact sheet, to see some of what these, affordable housing units look like. Obviously, you have one down the street with the moving out project, but these are just examples from around the county. There's some on the front and the back of your sheet, all different sizes and shapes and styles. So how much does affordable housing cost? This is a slide that shows sort of who would qualify and how much income they would be making. So for a couple, for two people, at 60% area median income, they would be making $62,340. And I don't know if you can see this, but so that is $31.17 an hour for 50 weeks for one person, or that could be divided into two. And that doesn't really take into consideration whether or not they have insurance or paid sick days or paid vacation days, just to try and give you a ballpark. And then so WIDA, who establishes the rent limits for those individuals, says that individuals who are making 60% of the area median income and they want a one-bedroom can pay up to $1,461, and that is rent plus utilities. If they want a two-bedroom, then they can pay up to $1,753. Now, I'm not sure if that sounds like a lot of money to you or not. If you're thinking about a two-bedroom or one-bedroom, as you can see, this isn't, when we talk about affordable workforce housing, it's not like, they're getting rock bottom prices. Typically, it's about 20% below market rate for these units. Yeah, and then that would leave the rest of the money, as I've defined here, for food, clothing, medical, car, household supplies, et cetera. So demand for affordable housing in Dane County, according to the regional housing strategy, we need to produce 1,765 new affordable units per year, and 300 of those units should be affordable senior units. And overall, 26% of all our new housing should be low to moderate income. And that's kind of it's a local average, it's a national average. About a quarter of our residents, city, county-wide, whether you're urban or rural, are low to moderate income residents. In 2024, between all the municipalities, we funded 700 units of affordable workforce housing. And on your fact sheet, you can see this, the big squeeze. It's a great visual of what the problem is. We have lower and higher income households. Is on the back of your fact sheet. We have lower and higher income households who seek units at affordable, that are affordable to other income brackets, really increasing the competition and driving up prices. So strategies to support, and I think we talked about this last time, why we have this housing crisis, but obviously we've been underproducing for probably decades now. The number of units that are needed, which have increased the development costs, and wages are not increasing at the same rate as housing costs. As we discussed earlier, between 2020 and 2022, housing prices, the median home price increased $95,000 in Dane County, and that has not gone down or changed. So some strategies to support affordable housing, creating learning opportunities for residents so they can have a better understanding of affordable housing and what it is, identifying the target number of affordable units needed over a 5 or 10 year period in your community and including that number in your comp plan housing chapter, updating local TIF policies, tax increment financing policies to support affordable housing, using TIF extension funds to support affordable housing, utilizing local bond financing, allowing for expedited permitting to facilitate development. Typically, development, about a quarter of the cost of development are in pre-development costs. Eliminate or increase your multifamily cap, or provide a density bonus for affordable workforce housing, and then projects that meet your criteria, for affordable housing projects that meet your criteria, and then reducing potential impact fees or parking requirements. Any questions before we go on to the next one, missing middle? Okay. So what are the key characteristics of missing middle? Buildings in similar scale to single-family homes or adjacent development, contains more than one residential unit, and the units, additional missing middle units range in size from 1,250 square feet to 600 square feet. So why is it missing? We touched on this a little bit last time, and feel free to turn to your missing middle fact sheet. This is a further analysis of the housing production trends per acre over time. So in the 1950s, we were building at 29 units per acre with a population of 3,421,316. Moving that all the way up to 2020, the population is now 5,893 and 718, but we're only building 8 dwelling units per acre. And this is, state of Wisconsin, Wisconsin-wide. But so what we're seeing, at least in Wisconsin, is that there's a 42% increase in population and a 28% decrease in the number of housing units per acre. So going at complete opposite directions. And that on top of the fact that not only the population increases, but land prices are increasing, larger lots, fewer houses per acre, and then increased construction costs and labor and stagnant wages really creates for a perfect storm.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Or comment.
Mm-hmm.
I would say even the lumping in from the 1980 to present, that is such a wide band in there that I don't think in many ways might mask some more of the recent trends that we're seeing in here. So even though it's only 8 dwellings per unit or dwelling units per acre, really I would say more recent, that number from some of the research I've seen is a lot lower than that.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But do you want me to actually do some analysis on that, or you're just making a comment?
Just making a comment.
I would agree.
I was just going to add, Chris had sent us a video when we first kicked off. And one of the things that I found really interesting in there, the speaker talked about how in the 1950s, the average size of a home was 983 square feet. And now it's like 2,600 square feet.
That is correct.
So
Yeah.
I think, obviously that plays a huge role too in having those smaller homes available.
Yeah. And because of the prices of homes and land and labor and costs, we're seeing developers starting to build smaller homes, not because we're asking them to, but because they have to in order to get people into the home market. Madison Area Builders Association provided a tour. Actually, Aaron, you might have been on that tour over in Fitchburg in, I can't remember the name of the development, but there were a number of houses that were 12 to 1,300 square feet, brand new, and that was very interesting. It was interesting too, however, that instead of having a normal ceiling height, the ceiling was a little bit taller, and so we had to kind of maybe accommodate for the smaller size. I don't know, but they are experimenting with smaller housing sizes going down. But that's the first time I've seen that. So yeah. And, this is just an example that you might have seen before, but, missing middle encompasses small apartments, cottage courts, condos, duplexes, fourplexes. Depending on the size of your municipality, it'll mean something different. Smaller format homes, studios, triplex, and courtyard apartments. So, right, so obviously some of the benefits of missing middle housing, there's a variety of housing types that accommodates life cycle and preferences, more sustainable and less expensive for municipalities, putting more diverse units on less land, requires less infrastructure, less maintenance, and less road, sewer, sidewalk, and water, and then more affordable by design if you're talking about 600 to 1,200 square feet. So what are some of the obstacles to missing middle? I think just a general lack of awareness about what missing middle is and what it looks like and why it's needed. Development and residential zoning regulations often prohibit smaller apartment buildings, ADUs, and townhomes. And then density caps. I don't think you have do you have a density cap in Cottage Grove? Oh, okay, yeah. Built into the zoning district, okay. So density cap, large minimum lot sizes, setbacks, or lot coverage and parking requirements are sometimes obstacles. So allowing missing middle, how to increase it, allowing missing middle in residential districts by right. So does everyone understand what by right housing is, that you don't need to go through the whole permitting process? Single-family housing is the only housing that's permitted by right typically in most municipalities. So identifying additional types of housing that would be allowed for by right, thus expediting their development and eliminating that pre-development cost, which is a big part of the developments. And then things like reducing setbacks or lot sizes, reducing or eliminate parking minimums, and then regulating scale instead of density. That's something that communities are looking into. Instead of adding the number of units, deciding the bulk requirements like the height and the width. So going gradually up in terms of height and width, so it could blend in more readily with your single family development, or when you're adding density, instead of saying allowing for X number of additional units. That's another thing. Yeah, that's a way for to increase the number of units you're bringing forward. Any questions? Okay, and the next one I'm going to talk about is how zoning contributes to the housing crisis. And I think we have talked about this a little bit, but it does, as we talked about in missing middle and affordable housing, it does prevent the construction of many in-demand types of owner and renter occupied housing. Single-family districts often restrict townhomes or condominiums or small multifamily. And this type of missing middle can be more accessible for first-time home buyers. Lot size can restrict the amount of units being developed and prevent smaller, low-cost homes from the market. And then, as I was saying before, zoning approval processes can be very costly for developers, and they can also impose additional requirements that add to the cost, including parking and height limitations. Zoning has a long history with racial segregation, and it was historically used to facilitate racial segregation, and continues to disproportionately impact communities of color. Zoning was used to identify and isolate communities of color, leading to disinvestment and white flight. Single-family zoning historically excluded most low-income and minority communities, and a majority of units in Dane County are detached single-family homes. Cottage Grove has 74% of single-family homes, and so that's about 10% higher than in Dane County. I will share with you that in the last decade, the percentage of single-family homes to multifamily is going down slightly, a few percents in the last decade, and I think that's a trend that's continuing given the cost of housing.
I have a question, if I may. One of the things on here says zoning approval processes can be costly for developers. I'm kind of just curious on your take on planned unit development zoning. Does that, I've heard some developers don't like it because it's a little less certain and it can add to some administrative costs. Do you have any experience with that, and can you tell us more about that?
I don't, but your planning director does have more experience with planned unit developments. I will share with you that I hear all the time that planned unit developments are very time consuming. They're very cumbersome because they each have to be addressed individually, and they're, because each of the places are decision points and room for discussion, that those processes can expand, out for months and even years. And communities, from my experience now, are trying to limit the use of planned unit developments and try to have more consistent zoning code so that there's more consistency for developers. But I'm going to turn that over to Aaron and share what your experience is.
Yeah, most of the larger apartment complexes we've done recently have been planned unit developments, mostly due to the number of units in the building. So we have restrictions on that. Certainly loosening up the zoning to allow, larger projects or different kinds of projects would help get rid of those PUDs. The PUDs are, on the other hand, are also an opportunity for the public to weigh in a little more robustly than with something that's
Do you know of the developed projects that have been in PUDs, how many developers have requested a PUD and how many have just built on one that was already zoned for that?
They've all requested them. You don't do a PUD in advance because it's tied specifically to that site plan.
can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Back to the majority of the units in Dane County slide, detached single-family homes equals 65%, Cottage Grove is 74%. So I'm wondering, like, if you pull the city of Madison out of those, and let's say we want to just compare how we are to McFarland or Stoughton, or, do you know what I mean? Like, any of these folks over here, does that gap close a little bit? Like, do you have that
I
data?
think, didn't we do that in the first, you have the slides in the first one? We might have that
Okay,
ratio
I'll
in
have
the
to
first
look
slides,
back
but
to
I'm
that.
happy to bring that forward, sure.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I'm just curious, like, when
I know
we-
that's in our housing study, that's a couple years old now, but that's one of the.
it
things we
compares
looked
us
at.
to other
Yeah.
municipalities,
Yeah.
our size and such.
Outlying areas, there's less multifamily than there is in the city of Madison.
Yeah.
But,
That would be my guess, but
right, but I'm happy to, find that information.
I'll look back through I forgot my binder tonight, so I'll look back.
I
through the
can't
binder.
remember, did we do that, present that information in that?
I think we pulled the data, and I'm not sure if it was included in the
Okay.
last meeting, so
Okay.
I'll verify.
Okay. And this is just a overview of the homeownership rate by race in Dane County. Overall households are, 59% of households are owned. 64% of white households are ownership versus renter. And that goes all the way down to Black African American, and Black African American percent of households has actually gone down 1 or 2% in the last decade percent of homeowners.
I remember from the regional housing strategy, that was also true at the same income level, that the disparities still
Yeah,
existed.
very
it's
much
not
so.
Just an income
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, so examples of zoning updates to help address the housing crisis. And as I said before, we're about to publish this guide, Best Practices Residential Zoning Code Guide, to address the housing shortage and the affordability crisis. But these are just some examples, and I will bring that forward at our next meeting for you to take a little bit of a deeper dive. So allowing for a variety of housing types within your residential zoning code, including townhomes, condominiums, and smaller multifamily, reducing minimum lot sizes and setback requirements to allow smaller homes. In 2024, actually, Middleton was the first community outside of Madison to reduce their minimum residential lot size to 3,000 square feet. Increasing the number of dwelling units per acre, or expanding the bulk requirements, height and width. Offer a density bonus to incentivize more housing to be built in proposed village, or you can call it gentle density. Density is sort of a bad word in many conversations. You could add 3 more, or 5 or 8, as a density bonus. We should come up with a different term, density bonus, like, I don't know. Anyway, I'll have to put my thinking cap on. But happy homeowner bonus. Anyway, reduce or eliminate parking requirements where feasible. Create higher density residential or mixed use districts that allow for different types of housing, including commercial. And then single family housing is allowed by right. So potentially identify, some type of housing, whether it's condos or whatever it is that you're comfortable with, and a specific number of units by right in designated districts to help eliminate that pre-development cost and approval process and lower housing prices. The next thing I'm going to do is ask you to turn to your handout. We're going to cover some of the existing programs and resources, and there are a lot of them that could help you and your residents. Do I have it? Do I have the copy? Do you have a copy? Thank you. So I'm not going to go through all of them, but I want to list them, and they will be put in your housing chapter with some description in here. But so just taking it from the top, does everyone have their list? Okay. So homebuyer education and training. There's a lot of training for first-time homebuyers or new homebuyers. And I will share with you that, from all different places, WIDA has homebuyer info, and nowadays a lot of it is online, or most of it is online, so it's really a lot more accessible than it used to be if you had to drive someplace for it. We also have a lot of down payment assistance programs, and I will share with you, because I think, collectively, we all should figure out a way to address this, solve this problem, but we have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars for down payment assistance that doesn't get used every year because people don't know that it's there. Now, you do have to, it is income qualified, so if you're making 80% of the area median income or less, you can qualify. In the city of Madison, it's like 55, almost 60,000. In Dane County, you can layer a number of programs together and get almost $50,000, up to $50,000 in down payment assistance. That is a really big make or break, I think, for a lot of people. And I meet people all the time that have no idea about it. So I just want to share that with you and yeah, make sure you know about that as well. And then there are a lot of resources around home repair, rehab, and weatherization. Project Home has major and minor home repair. Minor home repair is more like, maybe getting a ramp for your entrance and a new door. Major home repair is something like more like a new roof or a window replacement, those kinds of things. There are two examples in this sheet that of municipalities who have loan programs for major and minor home repair. Renew Monona loan program, which has actually been around for quite a while, has 2% interest loans for homeowners to go towards rehab, energy efficiency upgrades, renewable energy or home system upgrades, even environmental remediation, or toward down payment for a first-time or first-generation home buyer. Qualifying homes have to have a recent assessed value that is at or below 100%, 120% of the median assessed value for residential property in the city. And these are their, as of January 2023, this is the a median assessed value in Monona. Wanakee Housing Betterment Fund just extended one of their TIF closing tax increment financing districts. As we've mentioned before, there's a new state statute that allows you to extend a closing TIF for a year, and you can use 75% or more, or you're required to use 75% of that towards workforce housing, but you can actually use all of it. And Wanakee created a housing betterment fund, to help Wanakee's affordable housing stock and help increase appearance and quality. And they provide a reimbursable grant to homeowners for a wide range of home improvements. And I think it's up to $10,000. Yeah. And then there are all these other programs that actually help folks in various groups, veterans, folks who are disabled, maybe you have lead in your home, to help preserve or repair your homes. And then there's a wide list of energy and weatherization resources for homeowners. The state of Wisconsin has a very robust programming around this, particularly focused on energy. But everything from solar to new HVAC and free energy audits, and there's a lot of discounts in your federal taxes if you have done any of these that you can get for doing these upgrades. And then, the other resources. Alex, you want to talk about the other resources?
Yeah, can I just see that? So the first one is for the Fair Housing Center of Greater Madison, which is a satellite office of the Fair Housing Council. And we put the phone number there for filing complaints. There's the Greater Madison area number, as well as the toll-free statewide complaint intake line. We added the Dane County Housing Authority on there. They administer housing vouchers, housing choice vouchers, and other solutions to affordable housing needs. We added the Homeless Services Consortium of Dane County. They have a number of resources in terms of emergency solutions, renter disputes, homeless services centered work, basic need resources, all that type of stuff. The Tenant Resource Center can provide mediation or assistance with navigating, again, any tenant and property manager disputes, things like that. They can now help you navigate eviction processes, things of that nature. And then the McKinney-Vento Homeless Assistance Act is a federal law that requires that students who are experiencing homelessness are entitled to certain protections and resources so they can stay in the same school. I don't know if you have anything to add to that, but yeah, so those are some other resources as well.
I have a question. Do we know, excuse me, federal legislation, the impact on some of these programs, especially in the energy and weatherization category?
Yeah, I think everything's on the chopping block, but we don't have any definitive answers right now. At least I don't. But it's being discussed, even I could say obsessively among people in the housing field and the energy weatherization.
I was just going to make a comment. In the home buyer education and training and down payment assistance, I think a big missing piece in this are the local credit unions, because the local credit unions do a ton of home buyer education. There are some that offer free one-on-one coaching to help people walk through that process. And there's actually some credit unions that are also offering down payment assistance. And I could provide you with an information about those. I don't know if you're already working with credit unions, but
We're working, Summit Credit Union has been an important partner for many years, so, but yeah, that's a great ad, and I really appreciate that. If you have any, I mean, I know the major ones, but if you have any kind of insider information, we'd be very happy to
I
receive that.
do, and I'll get that to you.
Fantastic, thank you, okay.
Paula made a great point, and I know credit unions also provide financial literacy too. So like young people that are learning how to manage their finances, I think that's kind of important too to have.
Yeah, and I will share with you that this piece of paper, or with these programs, is part of a much larger project that we're working on called All Things Housing. It's been a year in the making, and it's probably going to take maybe until the end of the year, but we're going to be putting together a comprehensive one-stop shop website. So we'll probably do a soft launch sometime this winter, and always happy to get any feedback, because you know there's so many experts out there, and you know we can only know so much. But yeah, just wanted to share that with you. And then the last program, I think we mentioned it earlier in the first meeting, but competitive loan financing for workforce and senior housing, vacancy to vitality, converts vacant and underutilized commercial properties to housing, rehabs, restore Main Street, rehab second and third floor rental housing over commercial space. And then the third, infrastructure access, covers the cost of installing, replacing, or upgrading and improving public infrastructure related to workforce housing or senior housing. So that's, there are a lot of communities who are trying to figure out how to do that, because obviously a lot of communities do need to update their infrastructure, but they do need to either rehab or build new workforce housing or senior housing. So now I'm going to turn it over to Alex just to cover some of the quick highlights before we dive into a review of the housing priority strategies and core values that you identified at the last meeting.
Yeah, so you heard a lot of regional and local data at the last meeting, and we just kind of wanted to bring some highlights to your attention and make sure it's fresh in your mind for you. So I'll just quickly go through these. We'll start with regional.
I think we forgot the break. Do you guys want to take a break?
Oh, yeah.
Glass of water,
Break.
step, ladies' room, stretch. 1 minute, 2 minutes? Keep on rolling? All in favor of keep on rolling? Okay, that was unanimous.
Wow.
All right. You guys are hardcore.
Yeah.
Sorry,
awesome.
I forgot.
Yeah, me too. Completely forgot. Okay. So for the first regional trend, we want to highlight the severe housing underproduction that's been going on in the county. Between 2010 and 2021, 38,000 plus new jobs came to the county, which is double the job growth rate for the state. However, 8,000 more new households moved to the county during the 2010-2020 period than the number of housing units being built. So there's a mismatch of we're adding new jobs, but we're not keeping up with production to meet that demand. You saw this graph last time, but Dane County's population is increasing across all age cohorts, especially ages 55 and older. Dane County is also the fastest growing county in the state, so you can see that the 15 to 34 age cohort grew by 23% compared to 0.5% for the state. And the 55 plus community grew by 52.7% compared to 35.5% for the rest of the state. The Dean County senior population is expected to grow by 25,300 between 2020 and 2040. Olivia mentioned this earlier, but the number of new affordable senior units that were identified as being needed each year are 300. And the last year that senior housing was added in Cottage Grove, at least that we could find, was 2017 when Drumlin Reserve expanded with new units. We want to highlight the rising home prices in the county. There was a $95,000 increase in Dane County's median home price in just a 2-year period between 2020 and 2022. And we've had persistent low and declining vacancy rates, with Dane County's vacancy rate being 3% below the national average. Olivia touched on the big squeeze chart in one of the fact sheets, but I just want to touch on this again because Dane County faces a severe affordable rental shortage. Lower and higher income households need to seek units affordable at other income brackets, as you can see in that chart where the arrows are pointing toward those center units in the middle. This increases competition for lower income households having to compete with higher income households. Also, the blue arrow is pointing to the housing gap of 13,300 rental units that are needed for households earning 30% AMI or below. Homeowners face, that was for renters, and this big squeeze is for homeowners who face a similar trend of lower and higher income households seeking units affordable to other income brackets. Between 2013 and 2023, Cottage Grove added about 1,600 new residents. Population projections are produced by the DOA, and we just want to kind of give you a picture of what that will look like. In 2020, the population was 7,303. In 2030, it's projected to rise by over 4,000. Same for 2040 and 2050. So as you can see, the pace of population increasing is expected to become much faster than our current rate. And then the last box on here, the local workforce is expected to increase due to the new Amazon facility, which is going to increase workforce and market rate housing demand. Cottage Grove has an aging community. As I mentioned earlier, the median age increased from 36 to 40 between 2013 and 2023. 55 plus residents make up 24% of the village's population as of 2023. And the 65 plus population grew by 5.3% between 2013 and 2023. We wanted to make sure to point this out. Cottage Grove has the lowest vacancy rate out of the comparison communities at 0.9. And then Cottage Grove also has the lowest share of 3 to 9 unit buildings out of these comparison communities. Cottage Grove has the highest median gross rent out of these comparison communities. And then the second highest median home value after Wanakee. 35% of renters in Cottage Grove are housing cost burden, so they're spending over 30% of their income toward housing costs, and then 20% for homeowners. We talked about the ratio of single-family to multifamily homes, which Cottage Grove has 74% versus the county with 65%. And then Cottage Grove has a majority of newer housing stock that's been built in 1990 or later. I'll pass it off to Olivia.
I'm actually going to request if we could take a 3-minute break, because if I sit much longer, I'm going to, yeah. So if everyone wouldn't mind, and feel free to stand up or not, but I just really need to just stand up for a few minutes because I have been sitting all day. Thank you.
Is it of interest to you?
Before we like move on or whatever, can I ask a question back to vacancy rates?
Yes.
So that is from 2023. Do we have an idea of what it is today in 2025? Because we've added housing stock, right?
No, that's the newest year for the census data, we'd have to.
Aaron, Mike.
That's the newest census data that we can get is 2023, so, I mean, we could reach out to all the apartments and get theirs. It's a little bit harder with the single family. I guess we just look at how many homes are on the market.
So I kind of did that actually.
Oh.
So I reached out to the apartment complexes or went online because some of them even have it online. And so I don't know if you just want me to give that to you and share that bit, but I think the vacancy rate's probably higher now than what we saw for 2023. So that was just my question. So, but I'll send that to Aaron.
You could share what it is, what you found.
Well, like, I mean, for instance, just like, you know, the different apartment buildings, Authentics has 27 units open, Cottage Grove Commons 21, Glen Grove 2, Artisan Square 4, Prairie Grove 5. And then for senior affordable housing, there's no openings. In fact, both Taylor Ridge and Glenwood have wait lists. So yeah, I just kind of,
So that was just, you just looked individually, you didn't create a vacancy rate for the
I did
for
not.
Cottage
No,
Grove
I did not.
overall? Okay, yeah,
because that's not my,
area, but
Yeah.
yeah, thanks for doing that, yeah.
yeah, but
Feel
I'll
free
send
to
that along.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
Yeah,
Kind of
thank you.
related questions to that.
Yeah.
If I recall, last time we talked about this, the ideal vacancy rate is what, 5 to 8% for the healthy market in there? Because you do need that wiggle room a little bit in there,
Right,
right?
at a minimum, 1.5 for single family and 3.5 for multifamily, that's a minimum. You can ask housing economists to a real estate agent, the minimum healthy vacancy rate is 5%. But it does go up to 6.5 or even 7% according to, you know, depending on who you're asking and what market it's in. But at a minimum, it's 5%, yeah. Any other questions before we move on? Okay, so, oops. Huh. Oh, you went down there. Okay, got it. Okay. So last time we were together, you were asked to identify your top housing priorities, core values, and strategies. So today we're going to review what you said and see if you have any further thoughts, questions, want to identify anything missing or that doesn't ring true. And I realize, we recognize that this is the first time you're seeing this information, so just feel free to take this information home with you and come back with any thoughts or comments you have at meeting 3. Also, feel free to stop and ask any questions as we go through this. So let's just turn to our handouts for a minute. And the handout to look at is sample priorities, values, strategies, vote count. Does everyone have that? It's got this gray bars on it. Why is it mine? Oh, there it is. Okay, you can have yours back. As you can see, sample priorities, the first one the one that received the most votes, 4 votes, diversify housing stock and increase supply of townhomes, condominiums, missing middle rentals, small format single-family homes. The next 3 received 3 votes. Add more housing for our local workforce, like teachers, retail workers, and public employees. The second one is increase overall supply of housing units, and third, increase the supply of senior housing so people can age in place. The next one that received 2 votes is raise community awareness about the local housing crisis, housing shortage, support development of affordable single-family homes for first-time homebuyers and young families. And then if you turn on the back, these 4 got 1 vote. Provide resources and protections for the most vulnerable populations, make housing information resources available for current and future residents and developers, and then increase the supply of housing units affordable to low and moderate income households. And then finally, make housing more accessible to underrepresented groups. The last 3 received no votes. And it doesn't mean that these can't be included or somehow included as part of the overall priority strategies and action items, but they at least for the priorities received no votes. Build more climate-friendly, sustainable, pedestrian-oriented neighborhoods, build capacity to address housing needs, preserve older housing stock in neighborhoods, and then obviously build capacity to address housing. So that is those are the priorities and how you ranked them in terms of the number of votes received. So we asked you to identify your core values, and core values are helpful to provide an opportunity for you to identify shared values and to use them as a basis and framework to guide you and help you identify the strategies and action items moving forward. I'm going to just go through these. The top 5 that you identified were affordability, economic growth, informed and engaged community, and economic stability. What we did here is, because it's not helpful to have a laundry list, it kind of lose focus, disperses attention. What we did is actually look at the ones that did not receive or received 2 or less votes and try to include them in the statement, the sort of value statement that we created. These are just draft statements, and this is for you to consider for review. But I'll just go through these draft core value statements. So all people have affordability. All people have housing they can access, afford, and maintain that meets their changing life cycle needs. Economic growth. Housing production meets employee needs and supports employee retention and growth. Informed and engaged community. Residents and local leaders understand the housing crisis, are empowered and responsible or accountable for being part of the solution, and that includes other core values that were identified: accountability and access to information. And then economic stability. There are 2 options here. All residents have equitable access to housing, including specialized housing, as well as information, programs, and resources that meet their needs. And that we tried to integrate the idea of adaptive, the core value of adaptive, equity and access to information in there. And then this other one we created, we weren't exactly sure if economic stability was, you wanted us to expand economic stability beyond housing. So this sort of is a little bit more inclusive. All residents have equitable access to housing and information, programs, and resources that meet their basic needs, as opposed to just their housing needs. So I'd be interested, or we'd be interested to hear if you have any comments or thoughts on any of these, and in particular the economic stability, what feels more resonant to you?
I guess I can kick us off. Regarding economic stability, I kind of like the first option because that kind of gets to one of the themes I heard from us last time was that specialized need, like senior housing or getting that starter home element, and that kind of jives with what the survey's in here. So I really like that intentionality behind that statement versus the second option there.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have any thoughts? And you don't, I mean, you're seeing these for the first time. You don't have to have an answer or response, or, you know, we're not asking for wordsmithing, but just sort of what resonates with you. And we're going to bring this back. I'm going to bring this back at the next meeting. So there'll be an opportunity to comment further if you have any thoughts. But any other immediate reactions or comments, questions? Yeah, so we, like I said before, we didn't want to create a laundry list of 10 different core values, but tried to really integrate them. So there's these 4: affordability, economic growth, informed and engaged community, and economic stability, which got most of your votes. So at this point, those are the sort of core values, but looking forward to hearing any further thoughts you have at the next meeting. So the next thing we did is you identified your top housing strategies. You can see these on pages, draft statements, where's page 4? Oh, there we go. 4, wait, where did are we missing 3, 2, 4? Oh, is it on a different page? Okay, I'm missing something. Does everyone start their sample strategies with 3 votes and 2 votes? Yeah.
Yeah, that's where it starts.
Okay, we didn't have any 4. Oh, okay.
Because there were so many more options.
Oh, right. Okay, so top strategies that received 3 votes, and if it has a green asterisk, that means it came from your previous comp plan chapter or your housing study. So 3 votes: increase the supply of missing middle housing, townhomes, condominiums, accessory dwelling units, cottage courts, and small multifamily. Update the local zoning code. The strategies that received 2 votes: ensure neighborhoods are well served by sidewalks, bicycle routes, and other non-motorized facilities connecting neighborhoods whenever possible. Design neighborhoods that provide a range of housing types, densities, and costs, and then coordinate new residential development with school districts to ensure adequate capacity. And then moving on from there, I will read, anyone want to read the 1 vote?
Sure. Okay. 1 vote. Number 1, create more senior housing. Number 2, develop more pedestrian, bike-friendly housing in neighborhoods with access to transit, complete streets. Number 3, use the future land use plan to specify locations for a range of housing types to diversify available housing. Number 4, selectively increase density compatible with single-family development. Number 5, create attractive and safe neighborhoods well-served by municipal services and facilities. And number 6, incentivize affordable home ownership with down payment assistance. Use TIF extension funds, consider models including MACLT and Renew Minnesota.
And,
Oh, geez, I'll keep going.
oh, this is on the handout.
Oh, I'm going based on the slides. I
Okay.
apologize.
It's okay. No, we're not using this. Yeah, you guys are ahead of us.
Oh,
Yep,
my
this-
bad.
That's not the next slide. So I'll just pick it up from there.
Sure.
Incentivize affordable homeownership. Does everyone have this handout? Okay. Incentivize affordable homeownership with down payment assistance. Use TIF extension funds. Consider models including MAC. Oh, sorry, you did that. One vote pocket parks and more green space. The next one, identify resources for the preservation of older housing stock. Add smaller units and increase overall supply of rental units to keep rents comparable with neighboring communities. Increase supply of owner-occupied affordable single-family housing, small format housing, Habitat for Humanity, and MACLT. And just to remind everybody, MACLT is the Madison Area Community Land Trust, and happy to discuss that model again if you'd like. And then continue to explore opportunities to improve ADA accessibility and connectivity throughout neighborhoods in Cottage Grove. And then the final one, make Cottage Grove more inclusive to diverse populations. And then on the next page of your handout, these are the ones that received no votes at this point. Doesn't mean we have to exclude them in terms of our overall outcome, but these are the ones that received no votes. Any questions?
So I know we have at least one person online who doesn't have the benefit of seeing these handouts. So how would, I mean, they're seeing the slides, but not necessarily these handouts that we're doing. So how can we make this kind of like either part of like the meeting minutes or the packet afterwards or something?
Yeah, we're going to be sending the whole packet to Aaron, and he'll be sharing that with you.
Okay.
And he'll make that available probably on some of it or all of it on the housing website that you have for the HCU update.
Okay. And that caused my confusion going between the slides. And
I'm
this,
sorry.
So that's
Yeah,
okay. That's
I'm
okay.
sorry,
I
yeah.
just want to make sure that, this is all available publicly. too.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yep. And so the next thing that we'll do is, where is my PowerPoint? Here we go. So, right, so based on the priority strategies you identified, as well, the priorities and strategies you identified, we summarized the priority strategies you identified. We summarized them into the top 5 housing priorities, and that's the next slide. So if you'll remember, the chapter is going to include an introduction, local and regional data, and then programs and resources, but the core of it will be priorities, strategies, and action items, including the core values. Based on your priority strategies, we summarize them, as I said, into the top 5 housing priorities. And if anyone wants to read them, I would welcome a volunteer. No, you're done. No, go ahead.
Okay, so this is, I just want to make sure I'm on the right slide this
Yes.
time. All right. Top 5 housing priorities for Cottage Grove. This is a draft. Number 1, diversify housing stock and increase supply of townhomes, condominiums, missing middle rentals, and small format single-family homes. Number 2, increase overall supply of housing units. Number 3, increase supply of housing units affordable to low and moderate income households, including our local workforce, teachers, retail workers, public employees, etc., and seniors so they can age in place. Number 4, support development of affordable single-family homes for first-time homebuyers and young families. And number 5, raise community awareness about the local housing crisis and the housing shortage.
Great, thank you. So, again,
Sorry, comment, question.
Yeah.
For number 3 here, increased supply of housing units affordable to goes on, but at the end, I'm focusing on the seniors, so they can age in place. Age in place is different than units affordable for those individuals, for seniors in this case. Because age in place really infers that we have support for them to stay in their current unit, is what I'll say, so they can age in that.
So,
Nope, go ahead.
okay, so age in place, a lot of people define it differently. Aging in place means aging, to some people, they actually mean just aging within their community. And then some people define it as aging specifically in their actual unit. And we didn't put a definition in here, but I'm happy to pick a definition, or you guys can pick a definition of what you want it to mean, and then we can actually work around that. But it is described both very specifically and more generally within your actual municipality. So, yeah. Any thoughts or questions?
I'm glad you brought that up. My inclination would be age in community, right? Because then that opens the door to more affordable senior housing and different things. Because I feel like it becomes a little bit of a Tetris game, right? If we can provide more senior affordable housing, then that frees up housing stock, right? And so it kind of has that trickle effect. I almost wonder if that should be its own item, but I'm not. Either way,
It's a priority.
yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I also think it's important for seniors that maybe transition, so maybe initially they are able to independently live on their own, but then down the road they need memory care. Having that ability to transition to that so they can stay in the community is important too.
Okay, so I'm hearing seniors potentially should have their own priority specific to them. And then I'm also hearing that we need to have a definition, maybe even a definition section, because there are lots of terms that are being used by, and if it'd be helpful for all of you to be on the same page in terms of your definitions. So certainly including aging in place definition, and then, but being mindful of the fact that seniors, aging in place means something different in terms of independent living versus memory care, and we need to include that. And we do have an inventory, an updated inventory that Paige did for us on the senior living capacity that you have now.
Yeah, I just want to say I agree with what's been said, that I think the definition should really be age within the community in that regards. And that's part of the reason why I brought it up. So.
Great. Thank you. Any other questions or thoughts?
Just wondering, with these being numbered, does this come across to people as a ranking? Like number one's more important than number two? Because I don't know that was necessarily the
It
intention.
wasn't meant that way, but that's just, we wanted to identify that there were 5, so, but we don't have to number them, and yeah. Do you have any thoughts on numbering them or not? But,
Do we have 6 now if we break out seniors?
we would.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I think you're right. I think people will look at that and say, this is number 1, this is number 2, and I think we intend for them to be of equal importance, don't we? So I don't know how you would do that.
5 top
otherwise.
priorities, yeah.
Yeah.
Or 6 top priorities, yeah. Yeah. And we
So-
can be explicit in the chapter that says we're not ranking these in terms of order, but these are the 6, if we go with 6, that are top priorities.
So one of the things that, or one of the questions I have for the group, and this is me playing devil's advocate, which many of you know me, I like to do that and make sure we make an informed decision here. Breaking out seniors, well, I think it's great to call it out. Does it make sense versus lumping it all together? Because a lot of the same strategies, ideas, et cetera, do also tie into affordable low-income intentional housing for those populations. Could we do something similar to a previous statement? I forgot where it was, where talked about that kind of core intentionality of housing for that specific populations, and we could say first-time home buyers, low income, seniors, kind of grouping in there, keeping that as a broader priority, showing that and that we really want to target those populations. So, thoughts?
So I would have said yes prior to seeing the survey data, right? Because I feel like there's a lot of call out specific to, looking at median age and those percentages that really called out to me to be kind of its own segment with seniors. But I mean, that's just my gut reaction, and I know we all need to take time with this, but that's what kind of prompted me to say I think we should break them out, just because of the survey results, but yeah, I can go either way.
And there doesn't have to be an answer today, so.
No,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah, but does anybody else want to share any, do we break it out, like we did break out first-time home buyers? Obviously, these are different housing types, which require different policies, programming, strategies, funding priorities, but does it require an additional priority? That's something that I think that, should be further discussion, but it's an important discussion, so.
Just one more thing.
Yeah.
Number 5, raise community awareness about the housing crisis and housing shortage. I wonder if there's a way to tie in some of the elements we talked about with, like education, right, for first-time home buyers, and so that it's raise community awareness and develop partnerships or something that it's like a call to action.
So we get into, so these are just the priorities, and then under that go the strategies, and then the action items are the explicit things that you want to do. So we get into really much more detail with the action items, and we haven't even touched the action items. That's for the next meeting.
Even if we could add the word education.
Oh, okay.
Education
I
and
see.
awareness here, and then dial it down, because I think,
Okay.
There's awareness,
Gotcha.
but then there's a deeper level with education.
Great. Yep. Absolutely. Any other thoughts? Okay. So so let's turn to. We're going to go to the next slide, and I'm going to go through these pretty quickly because we want to save time for Aaron to talk about impact fees. These are the top strategies. Didn't we just go through this yeah, we did. We just went through these on the handouts. So what I'm going to do now is turn to, we combine top priorities and strategies. So the priorities, the 5 priorities that we identified for today, the draft priorities. And then we sort of nested the strategies that you identified under each priority that would support those strategies. And this is really just a first draft. And I'm going to go through those. In some cases, everything, well, first of all, everything that got a vote in both priorities and strategies were included. In some cases, we had to narrow down the priorities. We converted the priorities into strategies. Yeah. So feel free to look at the slides or your handouts as I go through this. Excuse me. So number 1, diversify housing stock and increase supply of townhomes, condominiums, missing middle rentals, small format single-family homes. So A through F, update local zoning codes, increase supply of missing middle housing, design neighborhoods that provide a range of housing types, densities, and costs. Use the future land use plan to specify locations for a range of housing types, diversify available housing, selectively increase density with single-family development, make Cottage Grove more inclusive to diverse populations. Looking at the second priority, increase overall supply of housing units, ensure neighborhoods are well served by sidewalks, bicycle routes, and other non-motorized facilities connecting neighborhoods wherever possible, coordinate new residential development school district to ensure adequate capacity, develop more bike-ped-friendly housing in neighborhoods with access to transit, create attractive and safe neighborhoods well served by municipal services and facilities, add smaller units, and increase overall supply of rental units to keep rents comparable with neighboring communities. Pocket parks and more green space, and then design housing in neighborhoods that are safe and reflect and build on neighborhood character. The third top priority with its concomitant strategies, increase the supply of housing units affordable to low and moderate income households, including our local workforce, teachers, retail workers, public employees, and seniors so they can age in place. Create more senior housing, continue to explore opportunities to improve ADA accessibility and connectivity throughout neighborhoods, Cottage Grove, and then provide housing resources and protections for underrepresented groups and vulnerable populations. Top priority number 4, is support development of affordable single-family homes for first-time homebuyers and young families, increase affordable owner occupied affordable single-family housing, small format housing, Habitat for Humanity, MACLT, identify resources for the preservation of older housing stock, and then incentivize affordable housing, home ownership with down payment assistance, TIF funds, et cetera. Consider models including MACLT and Renew Monona. And then finally, 5, raise community awareness and include education about the local housing crisis and housing shortage. Make housing information and resources available for current and future residents and developers. So those are the top strategies, and those are the top priorities and strategies. Any initial thoughts or comments? This is, again, the first time you're seeing this. You don't have to have any answers today, but we just wanted to sort of give you kind of a ballpark of the priorities that you identified, how the strategies would potentially fit under that, and then, and what your core values are, which are, we're using that as sort of a guide and basis for identifying the action items moving forward. So next steps, meeting number 3, we're going to review and discuss our work to date. We're going to come back to this information and including your comments from today. We're going to discuss, we're going to identify, discuss, and refine action items and prioritize the activities in an action plan. And year 1 to 5 action plan, as well as longer term activities. But the main thing we're going to be doing, we're going to be doing that, but one of the main things we're going to be doing in terms of activities is going to be specific. We're going to identify action items, specific activities to implement the strategies based on the priorities and the core values. As you know or may not know, state statute requires a 10-year housing chapter update. Cottage Grove is doing a 5-year housing chapter update because WIDA requires that if you want to be able to access those workforce housing funds I mentioned before, the Bank and City of Vitality, Infrastructure Access, and Renew. What's that first one? Anyway, the other loan program. And the structure of the housing chapter update at this point is going to have an introduction. It's going to be, we're trying to mirror what you already have so it can be consistent. What?
Sorry, Main Street.
Main Street, right. Mirror what you already have, introduction, key trends and data, regional outlook, programs and resources, priority strategies and action items based on the core values. As we noted in the beginning, that's a little bit different than what communities often do, which is I'm so used to doing priority strategies and action items. Objectives, what is it typically? Goals, objectives, and policies. I'm actually working with another community right now, Black Earth, who's doing the same thing, priorities, strategies, and action items. They're looking to create a 5-year action plan based on their information. So it seems to be more helpful, more direct, and more concise way for communities to actually work on the things that they want to prioritize. So at this point, doesn't want to go there. Any more discussion or questions before I turn it over to Aaron?
Okay, just to clarify, for meeting number 3,
Yes.
we want to really kind of look through all of this, but focus on priorities, core values, strategies, those thoughts that we kind of summarized that you think, again, I appreciate you summarizing that in there, and come to the table to have a conversation about should these be our priorities, values, strategies, kind of starting at the top with priorities and then working our way down kind of in there. And so we'll have that conversation to really nail those down and go from there. Correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And then we're going to identify and refine and discuss and refine the action items, the actual specific activities that you want to do to implement your the priorities and strategies based on the core values that you've identified.
Do we have an estimated date range for the next meeting?
We haven't gotten there yet, but
Okay.
Guess
soon as
Soon
possible.
as you're ready.
But we're in a little bit of a crunch because I'm not sure you heard the announcement when some of us were out of the room, but Alex is actually moving to California.
Yes.
So she's not going to be able to work on this anymore, but thank God we have Paige, who's still working with us. But that creates a giant hole in my staff. So I'm going to be a little pressed for time. Of course, I know you want to do this as soon as possible, and so do I. So, but that is going to be a deciding factor. There are a couple of things that I need to get off my plate before I can come back to this.
Yeah, I just want to say it's been wonderful working with you all. I'm disappointed to not see this process through, but I'm from California and there are family needs that I need to tend to, so I'll be returning home. My last day will be on Friday, but yeah, thank you so much for allowing me this opportunity to work with you all. It's been wonderful.
So as soon as we can, Erin and I can get together and I can have a little bit of space to just think about it. Yeah, but a lot of the, these two meetings, which was, some good work that we got done is, so the load will be a little bit lighter as we move forward, so.
Are we on a time crunch on the back end for something in particular? Like, if this takes a little longer for us, given your...
So there are two deadlines that WIDA has, and I'm not sure that you're actually gonna.
Yeah, I mean, I'd rather do it right than do it in a hurry. Yeah, when we get into 2026, we won't be eligible for the WIDA loans anymore. We're not necessarily gunning for anything in particular on those anyway, but we would like to at least be eligible again.
So rather than like October as our finish date, if we get it done by the end of the year, then we could still be for the WIDA loans, or no?
Yeah, there are two dates for the
Not
WIDA
sure.
loans. There's one in May and one in October. So if you're putting in an
okay.
application, I don't know
Got
what, I think it's October 6th. You
Okay.
have to have your application in by October 6th, and I think the May date is a little fluctuating. I can never remember what that date is. It's been different every
Okay.
year, but, so those are the two dates if you're putting in an application, in partnership with a
There's-
developer. Yeah.
Got it.
There's nothing in the works that we would be applying for
Okay.
in October. so.
Okay, thank you.
And the only thing we need updated is the housing chapter from here, and then that just goes right to the village board? Does that need to go to the plan commission?
Plan
But we don't have to worry, like, if we come up with any action items for like zoning changes, we don't have to pass those by that deadline. It's just the housing,
Just the chapter.
the
yeah.
language in the housing, okay.
The plan for what you want to do.
Okay, so, any other questions or thoughts, comments? Okay, then I'll turn it over to Erin. Thank you.
Yeah, we just want to talk a little bit about impact fees. This kind of stems from some conversation that came up at the board with some ideas Paula brought up, so feel free to jump in, Paula, at any point. But so impact fees are fees that are paid when a builder or developer pulls a building permit. They're intended to support the infrastructure systems that we have. So for example, water, we have wells and water towers and water mains that have been built by the people who have been living here. When you build a new house, you benefit from that, but you haven't paid for it. So the impact fee kind of helps a new homeowner make that investment into the existing system. But then obviously that's added cost that gets attached to a new home and affects affordability. So I think one of the questions that came up when we talked about this at the village board was, well, how does this affect affordability? And this seemed like a good forum to look into that topic. I mean, we're not the ones who are going to say whether or not we need another impact fee or what the amount is going to be or anything like that, but to run some kind of analysis on how the fees affect affordability, I think is something that we can do within our chapter. So just as an example of that, there's a handout on the table where I just kind of ran through a few examples. I'll just do the first one. We don't have to do all three. And the specific numbers aren't really that important today. It's more the methodology, and it's just the kind of information we'd want to generate to think about future impact fees and to put it in the plan. So for example, if you took a home at the exact median home value, which is $401,900, we add, so for the purpose of this, we're adding $8,143 of impact fees. We have a water and sewer impact fee now. We have a park improvement fee now. The public safety one is what we don't have now, but that's what Paula was interested in having the village take a look into. And for the purposes of this example, I just plugged in the number that McFarland uses, because I think they were probably the most recent new fee, yeah. So altogether, those would add about $8,000 to the cost of any home. So to look at that in terms of how would that affect a mortgage payment, for example? So kind of using the typical, if there is such a thing, standards for mortgage, 20% down. I think I was using 6.4% interest was a number I found online for a 30-year fixed mortgage. So without the impact fees, that calculates out to a $2,011 mortgage payment. When you factor in the impact fees, that goes up to $2,052. So basically, the impact fees are adding $41 a month to the mortgage payment for kind of this typical example. So to kind of back that into affordability, housing is typically deemed affordable when you're spending 30% or less of your gross income on housing. So the income needed to handle that mortgage payment without the impact fees was $80,440. If you add the impact fees, you'd need $82,080 income for that same home plus the impact fees. So an additional $1,640 per year, which is about a 2% increase, is what's being added by the impact fees. So does it seem like the kind of analysis that would be helpful to be including in the plan?
So this 100% median value, so these impact fees are per unit for single-family houses then?
Yeah, so these are the numbers for a single-family home. Multifamily units, it's adjusted, it's approximately half that. The park fees actually go by number of bedrooms in a multifamily unit, but for this purpose, I just used the single-family.
I'll just add two things. So the McFarland number is much higher than most of Dane County's
Yeah.
public safety, like by far. So most of the other fees, I mean, are under $700. So that's like worst case scenario
Yeah.
type thing. The other item to note is state statute allows the village to exempt affordable housing properties from impact fees. So it even allows the flexibility to choose, for instance, if you would want to waive a park improvement fee or the public safety fee from affordable housing. So that's something that
Yeah,
we would.
which for the park fees, I believe we do for
Right.
affordable and senior.
Right.
Yeah.
So I just want to make sure people understand that we can exempt some of those properties and such.
For seniors and affordable, is that what you're saying?
I believe so. I don't have the statute in front of me, but yeah. And McFarland started in, I believe they just started because they waited until all their costs of their public safety center was done, as well as the tax credits they got. So it was either 24 or 25.
I will share that at the annual meeting, the Regional Housing Strategy annual meeting, the Madison Area Builders Director actually gave us I'm not sure if it was in his presentation, but he shared statistics about how many homeowners we lose in Dane County per $1,000 increase. And I thought that was really interesting. I can share that with you see if that's relevant at all to this. But it was they had a very dialed-in analysis of that because obviously they don't want to lose new home buyers. But
And that was a concern when we talked about it at the village board level.
Oh.
And so I actually met with Aaron's counterpart over at Village of McFarland to see has this made an impact, and it hasn't yet. So at least for their community.
impact in terms of what? In terms of people buying homes, or
Right, like where you said, like we lose homeowners with every
Right.
$1,000 increase. They haven't seen it slow, the number of permits pulled or anything of that nature. But yeah, I can understand like when you get in those large $8,000 is a lot, right? When you put
Yeah.
everything in context.
Yeah, and it's this is really helpful. I mean, I think this is really interesting. I'm glad we're going to include this in the chapter. There are so many variables, like interest rates and credit scores and, yeah, so many things that actually impact that, people's ability to get into the housing market. But yeah.
So-
Okay.
Sorry, quick question. Paula, so when you met with Aaron's counterpart in McFarland to talk about the impact fees, they stated that they haven't seen that, but you also mentioned that the new fees kind of came into play this year, correct? Or
I'll double check on the exact year, but it was after their building was built and all the final costs were in, so within the last year or two.
Okay.
Because they were waiting on 2 tax credits because they're, it's a net zero facility, before they actually calculated what the actual cost would be.
Okay. The reason I just put that out is usually that could be a lagging indicator. So it's not like an instantaneous impact on the impact on housing due to the impact fees. You might see that down the line just due to developer planning, et cetera. So you might see that further down the line. So I just would be hesitant making that statement and us making the assumption that just because McFarland hasn't seen any dip due to this increase doesn't mean it's actually going to happen at this point in time. So I just wanted to caution us in making that leap.
And the only thing I'd like to do is just close with some of the comments that have been made in terms of action items for us to bring back to you. One question was, did the people outside of Cottage Grove, were any of the responses from business owners? We're going to share the raw data with you. If you want me to do further analysis, happy to do that. Just let me know or let Aaron know. But at this point, we don't have any crosstabs. There was a question, I think, from you, JP, about the skewed representation of single-family versus renters. If it's enough to look at the raw data, great. But if there's further analysis, I mean, we can't change the lack of representation unless we go out and do another survey. But if there's something that I don't know, you're looking for, just let Aaron know and then let me know. But yeah.
It was just, I guess the representation was just more calling out the limitation in there, but also just trying to get an idea of the survey response rate in there. And so, unfortunately, U.S. Census Quick Facts is down at the very moment.
I know, we went there today. It was like, come on. Yeah.
But I'm seeing references, so don't quote me on this, it needs to be verified. But in the 2020 census, U.S. Census had that Village of Cottage Grove had 2,727 households. That includes renters in there, I believe. So again, need to verify their definition in there since I was just pulling up as we were talking here. But it seems like the community survey that happened in 2023 by the U.S. Census, that number, again, it needs to be verified due to it being down at the moment, went up to 3,298. To put all that in context, is going off of the 2023 number, that would give us a 20% response rate, which is actually really good for a survey. Just really want to call that out in there, because 20% is kind of the gold standard that you want to see in there. But even so now, again, I can put on the data nerd a little bit more, but due to how you do it, collect it, et cetera, that number can actually be lower, and you'll feel pretty good that there would be an accurate representation of the population in there. So just going off the lower or the greater household number, getting us around 20% is good, is really what I want to say there.
Thank you. And yeah, just until Aaron and I get a new date, please use your notes, use your notebooks and this information to make notes and thoughts and comments, because we will revisit the priority strategies and values next time, and then we will also jump into the action items. So thank you, everyone.
Just one last thing. I looked it up. Early 2023 is when they started the public safety impact fee. So.
Thank you, everybody, and thank you, Paige, for all your work. And Alex, we'll miss you, but
Good
please
luck.
stay in touch. And any questions or suggestions or comments, please send those to Aaron, and he can share those with me. And I will be sharing the raw data with all of you. So,
Motion to adjourn?
oh yeah, I'm sorry. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting's adjourned. Thank you.